I never thought I'd find my father's life's work listed on eBay under the category antique scrap metal. Yeah, scrap metal. Hi, I'm Lena Walsh, 33, and if you've ever wondered what it feels like to have your family dismiss everything you care about, buckle up. I'm about to show you. My father, Henry Walsh, wasn't rich. He wasn't famous either. But to me, he was the kind of genius they write books about, just never in time. He spent his entire life building a device called the irrigation booster, a machine designed to save water for struggling farmers. It was his dream to make sustainable farming affordable. But he died 5 years ago, and with him, apparently, his dreams. My older brother, Derek, he inherited everything. Dad's workshop, his blueprints, even the old family farm. And what did he do? Turned the workshop into a man cave and stuffed Dad's designs into some dusty corner. When I asked about them last year, he literally laughed and said, "Come on, Lena, they're just old junk. Dad never made a dime off that stuff. Time to move on." I tried. God knows I tried. Until last Tuesday when I was mindlessly scrolling through eBay after a miserable workday. And there it was. Dad's original irrigation booster prototype, the same one he nearly went bankrupt building, up for auction at $250, labeled as vintage farming decor. My heart stopped. The seller? Username, Derek Farms, ours official. You know that feeling when your stomach just drops into your shoes? Yeah, that. I called him immediately. He didn't even sound guilty. "Lena, seriously? It's just some old machine taking up space. Nobody wants that crap. Thought it might make a cool lamp or something for some hipster bar." A lamp. My father's life's work. His dream. A lamp. I don't even remember what I said before hanging up. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened a new tab, logged into my PayPal, and placed the highest bid. I didn't care what it cost. That machine was coming home. But here's the thing. While I was bidding, something in me shifted. Why had I spent all these years standing on the sidelines while Derek trashed everything that ever mattered to me? To Dad? I'm a damn senior engineer in sustainable tech. Hell, I have contacts in agri startups across California. If anyone could actually make Dad's invention work, it was me. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just angry. I had a plan. I pulled up Dad's old patent files. Thankfully, I digitized them before the house was sold and started running the designs through updated modeling software. My heart was pounding the entire time, but by 2 a.m., I was staring at a screen full of clean, modern schematics. It was still viable. Hell, it was revolutionary. That night, I emailed an old colleague at Verdant Tech, a startup specializing in drought-resistant agriculture. By noon the next day, I was sitting in their office presenting my father's designs like I was pitching to save the world, because in a way, I was. By the end of the week, Verdant Tech agreed to fast-track development, and that's when Derek called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Lena, listen, the thing is, I might have made a mistake listing that old junk. Think you could sell it back to me?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at the final contract I'd just signed with Verdant Tech. He didn't know. He had no idea who bought it, or what I was about to do. And in that moment, with my heart pounding in my ears, I realized something else. This wasn't just about Dad's invention anymore. It was about reclaiming everything they told me I couldn't have. And Derek? He was about to find out exactly what that felt like. The thing about karma? She's got better timing than any clock I've ever owned. The day after Derek called asking to buy back the machine he tossed out like garage sale junk, I found out exactly why he was suddenly so interested. Turns out, Derek's brilliant business sense had finally caught up with him. His precious farm, the one he inherited just because he was born first, was circling the financial drain. Bad investments, failed attempts to grow organic avocados in a region that could barely keep grass alive, and oh, my personal favorite, dumping every last cent into a cryptocurrency named Barncoin. Yeah, Barncoin. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered all the times he stood in that dusty old workshop laughing at Dad. Henry, you're wasting your time on this junk. You think anybody cares about saving water? People want bigger crops, not smaller water bills. And me? I wasn't even worth the argument. Just the quiet daughter in the corner, scribbling ideas in a notebook nobody ever asked to read. So, no, I didn't feel sorry. That afternoon, my inbox pinged with a new message from Verdant Tech. Prototype testing successful. Project moving to pilot phase. I read those words 3 times before they sank in. Dad's machine, our machine, was actually going to market. And the twist? The pilot program was rolling out in the exact region where Derek's struggling farm was located. When I say I laughed, I mean I lost it. Right there, standing barefoot in my apartment kitchen, laughing so hard I nearly slid on the tile. That night, Derek showed up at my door. No call, no warning. Just him, standing there in the hallway like a man who'd just realized the floor beneath his feet was about to disappear. He looked older, defeated in a way I wasn't used to seeing. "Lena," he started, voice low, like the walls might be listening. "I'm in trouble." I crossed my arms. Did Barncoin finally collapse under the weight of its own stupidity? He winced. "Look, I know I've made some mistakes, but I didn't come here to argue. I came to ask, no, to beg, for your help." That's the thing about brothers like Derek. The apology always shows up wrapped inside a request. He launched into this sob story about the bank foreclosure notice, the rising irrigation costs, how he couldn't keep the farm running without some kind of breakthrough technology. I just stood there, letting him talk himself breathless. And then, when he was done, I asked one simple question. "You need Dad's invention, don't you?" His head snapped up like I'd hit him. How do you know about that?" Oh, Derek. Sweet, clueless Derek. I turned, grabbed a manila folder off my coffee table, and slid it across to him. Patent papers, licensing agreements, and right on top, my name. He flipped through them like his hands were on fire. This isn't possible. You bought it?" "I didn't just buy it," I said quietly. "I brought it back to life." He looked up, eyes wide. "Lena, the farm. It's all I have left." I felt that old familiar ache in my chest. That part of me that always wanted to believe he had a heart under all that arrogance. But before I could say anything, my phone buzzed on the counter. An email from Verdant Tech. Final investor announcement. The Walsh irrigation booster will be officially unveiled next week at the National Agricultural Expo. The same expo Derek had been trying and failing to get into for years. My hand hovered over the screen, heart pounding. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a family disagreement anymore. It was about to become very public. And Derek? He had no idea what was coming. They say closure comes when you least expect it. For me, it arrived wearing a white designer dress and my grandmother's engagement ring. But let me back up. I'm Claire Jennings, 31, and 3 months ago, I thought I was going to marry the love of my life, Nathan Bell. We'd been together for 4 years, planned vacations, talked kids, even toured wedding venues. Then, out of nowhere, he needed space. No explanation. Just a suitcase and a half-hearted, "It's not you, Claire. I just need to figure things out." You want to know what's worse than heartbreak? Silence. Days turned into weeks. Not a single call, not a text. I tortured myself scrolling through his social media, trying to decode every cryptic post like some sad, unpaid detective. Then, last Friday, I got a text from a mutual friend, Jenna. "Claire, you might want to sit down for this. Nathan's engagement party is tonight, and it's public." My hands literally went numb. Engagement? As in, engaged to someone else? After 3 months of space? I don't know what possessed me, but I found myself standing outside the venue 2 hours later. just standing there like some pathetic ghost of relationships past. I told myself I'd just peek through the window, confirm it was all some sick misunderstanding. Spoiler, it wasn't. There he was, in a tailored navy suit, smiling like he hadn't shattered my entire universe just a few weeks ago. And then she stepped out beside him, the bride-to-be. Her hair was pinned up elegantly, makeup flawless, and on her left hand sparkled my grandmother's engagement ring, the one I kept in a velvet box on my dresser. I swear, for a second, I couldn't breathe. That's when it hit me, this wasn't some whirlwind romance. He'd never needed space. He needed time to replace me. I turned to leave, but before I could vanish like the sad cliche I was becoming, Jenna spotted me from inside. And of course, in perfect Jenna fashion, she waved me over. The room went quiet as I stepped through the doors. Nathan's face turned pale. The bride-to-be? She looked confused at first, until our eyes locked, and I recognized her. Lauren Monroe, my best friend from college. I felt the room tilt. This had to be some kind of bad joke, right? But then Nathan reached out, grabbing her hand like he could somehow shield her from the wreckage. And right there, in front of everyone, he had the audacity to say, "Claire, this isn't what it looks like." I actually laughed. Out loud. Really, Nathan? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like betrayal. Topped with a vintage diamond I never gave you permission to touch. Lauren couldn't even look me in the eyes. Nathan tried to speak again, but I was already walking out. I didn't cry in the parking lot. I didn't collapse in my car. I booked a weekend trip to the mountains. Alone. And somewhere between the winding roads and the smell of pine trees, I realized something. I was done being the woman who waits for closure from people who never deserved my loyalty in the first place. But here's the part that still stings. I kept that ring because it was the last real connection to my grandmother. She used to say, "Claire, that ring's not just a promise of love. It's a reminder of your worth. Don't ever forget it." And I did. For 4 years, I forgot. I don't know if anyone out there's reading this has gone through something like this. Standing in a room full of strangers, staring at the life you thought was yours slipping away like sand through your fingers. But if you have, just know you're not alone. And one day, sooner than you think, you'll walk into a room and instead of feeling small, you'll feel like the storm. And trust me, when that day comes, they'll remember. I've always believed there's a certain kind of silence right before a storm. And standing in the middle of my childhood home, correction, the house I just legally purchased while my family plotted another reunion without me, that silence felt like electricity crackling under my skin. Hi, it's me again. Quinn Brooks, the invisible daughter turned corporate nightmare. My mother's text had come earlier that morning. "Quinn, we're hosting the family reunion at the beach house again. You're welcome to visit if there's space left." If. I stared out at the ocean from the deck I now owned, sipping coffee from a mug that read, "CEO Energy Only." A petty online purchase, but it felt appropriate. They had no idea. The house had fallen into foreclosure thanks to years of unpaid taxes and neglect. While they were busy planning themed brunches and posting perfect family photos, I was negotiating with their creditors and quietly filing ownership through my corporation. But today was the day they found out. I heard car doors slam in the driveway. Early. Of course. They were always early for things that excluded me. From upstairs, I watched them struggle with the lock, confusion spreading across their faces like a slow, glorious sunrise. Trinity, my picture-perfect sister, jiggled the doorknob with increasing frustration. "This is ridiculous, Mom. The key's not working." I couldn't resist. I made my way downstairs, heels sharp against the hardwood floor like a starting gun for a race none of them were prepared for. I opened the door slowly, savoring every second. "Looking for this?" I held up the key, dangling it between 2 fingers. Silence. My mother's eyes darted from me to the house behind me. Trinity's perfectly contoured face twisted into confusion. then something dangerously close to fear. Quinn, what is this? My mother's voice cracked. This, I said calmly, stepping aside, is my house. Welcome. They stood frozen like someone had yanked the floor out from under them. Nelson, my brother, the golden child who never worked a day in his life but always had a new business venture, was the first to recover. You can't be serious. This is our family house. I crossed my arms. Funny. When the foreclosure papers were signed, I didn't see any of your names on the dotted line. Mom staggered into the kitchen, as if she could somehow reclaim the space by just existing in it. But the reunion? How will we— Oh, don't worry, I interrupted, pulling out a thick bound document from my bag and sliding it onto the counter. These are the new terms for using my property. And just so you know, there's a rental fee. Market price. Friends and family discount. Strictly unavailable. Trinity practically gasped. Nelson muttered something under his breath about lawyers, but I didn't flinch. I had all the paperwork, all the receipts, and none of them had read a financial statement in years. But the real storm was still coming. Because just as my mother opened her mouth to unleash whatever carefully rehearsed guilt trip she'd prepared, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the local news outlet. Breaking: historic Brooks family beach house sold to private investor. Plans for luxury wellness retreat underway. I turned the screen toward them, watching the color drain from their faces as the realization sank in. Oh, I added, twisting the knife gently. Did I forget to mention? The house won't be available for reunions next year. It's being converted into an exclusive resort. And guess who's the majority shareholder? Trinity's knees actually buckled. Mom sat down so hard the chair scraped painfully against the floor. Nelson? He stormed out without a word. And me? I stood there smiling politely, sipping my coffee as if my entire childhood hadn't just flipped from tragedy to triumph. But here's the thing. No one talks about. Revenge doesn't erase the hurt. It dulls it. It buries it under contracts and victory speeches. But on nights when it's just you and the crashing waves outside, you remember every ignored phone call, every skipped graduation, every damn time they acted like you didn't exist. So, if you're reading this and you've ever felt like the invisible one, the afterthought, I hope you're working quietly, planning patiently. Because when your moment comes, make sure they never forget exactly who you are. And trust me, they won't. The day of the family reunion finally arrived, but this time the welcome banner didn't stretch across the porch of the beach house like it used to. It hung inside the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons, flanked by crystal chandeliers and the kind of floral arrangements you only see in bridal magazines. My venue, my event, my rules. They all showed up. Trinity, Nelson, my mother, dressed like they were heading to a charity gala. Funny how fast they adjusted when the venue changed, but not their attitudes. Mom's eyes scanned the luxurious space, lips pressed tight like she was trying not to taste the bitterness rising in her throat. I stood at the center of it all, calm, poised, wearing the exact same designer dress they once said would be too ambitious for someone like me. And then, just as the string quartet hit their crescendo, the hotel concierge approached with tomorrow's early edition of the Wall Street Journal. He handed them out like party favors. Right there, splashed across the business section, was my face. Next to the headline, Quinn Brooks, the youngest executive to lead global operations, the woman who bought her past to build the future. You could hear a pin drop. Nelson's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Trinity's husband awkwardly cleared his throat and stared at the carpet like he wanted to sink straight through it. And my mother? She sat down slowly, clutching her pearls like she'd just witnessed a funeral. In a way, she had. The funeral of every last ounce of control they ever held over me. I walked up to the table, calm as ever. Don't worry, I said softly. The hotel's already been paid for. You can enjoy the reunion in style for one last year. My mother looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. Quinn, what happens after this? I took a long sip of champagne and met her eyes head on. After this, I smiled. You'll have to find somewhere else to play happy family. This house, this legacy, you let it rot. I just made sure it found someone who knows how to keep it alive. And before anyone could respond, my phone buzzed. A direct message from the CEO of Verdant Global. Board unanimously approved the Hong Kong relocation package. Congrats, Quinn. You're officially untouchable. I slipped the phone back into my clutch, leaned in just enough for them to hear, and said the final words I'd waited my entire life to say. This is the last time you'll ever underestimate me. Then I walked out, heels clicking against the marble floor, every step echoing like a final verdict. And just like that, the girl they thought would never leave their shadow became the storm they never saw coming. That's the thing about justice. It rarely shows up loud. Sometimes it walks in quietly and leaves the loudest silence behind. What did I really learn from all this? That closure doesn't always come wrapped in apologies. Sometimes it looks a lot like walking away, head held high, while they sit in the ruins of their own arrogance. If you've ever been in my shoes, or hell, if you're in them right now, drop your story in the comments. Let's remind each other that no one gets to write our ending but us. And if you're still waiting for your moment, keep going. Your storm is coming. And trust me, they'll remember.